Welcome to the Takeaway Podcast, where we cover the NBA and the NFL every single Wednesday, bringing you the most up-to-date news across both leagues for both sports nerds and newcomers alike. I am your host, Ian Lee, and today we will be covering whether Cooper Rush should start or Dak Prescott should start for Week 6, and then my standing predictions for the Eastern and the Western Conference of the NBA. This is a really interesting episode today because we're finally delving a little bit more into the NBA. And that isn't going to be where we're going to be starting, but I just wanted to say that for any of you NBA fans who have been looking forward to this episode where we're finally going to be talking a little bit more about the NBA, welcome, and I hope you appreciate the next few episodes that will be coming out, obviously with the first day of the NBA season starting next week. But before we start with the NBA talk, we have to talk about the NFL in Week 5 and how that went. The biggest game that I guess I wanted to talk about, although there were a lot of games that were played, was the Los Angeles Rams versus the Dallas Cowboys at SoFi Stadium. Now, the game ended 22-10 in Dallas's favor. But the reason why I want to talk about this game is I feel like for Week 6 against the Philadelphia Eagles is a very important decision for them to make. Now we know that Dak Prescott is now healthy. Are you going to have him come in and start, or are you going to be feeding the hot hand in Cooper Rush, with him being 4-0 and Dak Prescott is just coming off of an injury? Plus, you're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Who do you want to be starting for Week 6? Now, there have been a lot of different opinions that have been going around. You have more likely a higher ceiling when you have Dak Prescott playing. When you need when you're in a shootout kind of game where both defenses aren't playing particularly well, but the offense really needs to be carried. Cooper Rush. He's obviously not as talented as Dak Prescott is with his arm. Now, the big question is, should you be having Dak Prescott come in and play off an injury against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are still undefeated at 5-0, or should you be feeding the hot hand in Cooper Rush, who is 4-0 undefeated as a starting quarterback? The reason why I want to talk about this game specifically is the reason why this narrative I feel like is so important to talk about is we can't purely look at record. We can't purely look at the scoreboard and say Cooper Rush is the definitive reason. He is the X factor as to why they're winning games. I feel like that is a bad assumption that you can potentially be making. As you can say they lost against Tampa, but when they switch quarterbacks, they're undefeated, and therefore Cooper Rush is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. I don't think that definitively you can go ahead and say that based off of the 5 games that we've seen from the Dallas Cowboys. The reason why I want to talk about this game specifically is in this game, we saw Cooper Rush. He threw 16 times, completed 10 of those passes for 102 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and he had a QBR of 80.7, which is obviously it's not a bad rating, but he did obviously have, if you guys watched the game, he had 2 fumbles as well, as he was sacked 3 times. But it's not like a huge game. Only just over 100 yards. No touchdowns, but the biggest thing is he's not turning the ball over. He's not throwing interceptions. Obviously, he did fumble the ball 2 times, but he's, at least in the passing game, he's not giving up the ball. Now, why this is so important is it's really hard to attribute Cooper Rush as the reason why they're winning games. I feel like it's the reason why the Cowboys are winning, and I feel like if you've watched the games, you would know, is it's their defense and their running game. Now, the running game, It's behind two backs, Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Now, Pollard had 8 rushes for 86 yards and a touchdown. Ezekiel Elliott had 22 carries for 78 yards. So neither of them went over 100 yards, but they're efficient in what they're asked to do. Tony Pollard is there to have explosive plays, but he's not as consistent as you can use him on every single down as like a workhorse kind of back, like you would with like a Derrick Henry or a Jonathan Taylor or some of the other backs that are the primary back that have consistent runs after run after run, which is what Ezekiel Elliott was before, but he is kind of in that role now, although he isn't as productive as he was earlier in his career. He's still there to play his role in that offense of rushing, getting first downs, progressing the offense, and just giving, alleviating the pressure of off of Cooper Rush, and so he doesn't have to throw every single down. Now, defensively is where the Cowboys really, really stood out. They were able to get 5 sacks this game, 2 from Parsons. Jordan Lewis was able to get 1. Armstrong was able to get 1. And Odigizua also got 1 as well. And they were able to pick off the ball as well. Malik Hooker was able to get 1. And he was able to return it for 3 yards, which was a big play for them. They were also able to recover 2 fumbles. DeMarcus Lawrence was able to return 1 for a touchdown, and Sam Williams was able to pick up 1 as well. They were able to defend, although their defense was really, really stout. It was their front 7 that really, really solidified their defense. I think that really needs to, I guess, be attributed to Micah Parsons and who he is as a player. That he's just so ferocious as a rusher. He's just able to get to the quarterback. He's able to have a variety of different moves that he's able to make with his quickness, his stutter, and his burst off of the line. And that really, really helps in the secondary, where they're able to, they don't have to play perfectly every single down because they have the pass rush to give them time to have the quarterback maybe second guess a throw or take a second longer. And that really, really helps. Obviously, not only their the pass game, but also in the rush game as well on the ground. And although, the Rams are not known to be a huge running team, obviously it does help to have a linebacker like Parsons on your team. Now, the big question that we asked in the beginning of this episode was who should be starting for Week 6, Cooper Rush or Dak Prescott? And as we've just analyzed, it's not Cooper Rush himself that is willing them to wins. It's not him throwing 350, 5 touchdowns, 0 picks every single game. That is the reason why they're undefeated with him as a starting quarterback. But I do think that it's the scheme that they have set in place on their offense that trusts the defense on that end and is simplifying the game so that Cooper Rush doesn't have to throw for 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, whatever that may be. But they're able to rely on the run game, chew out the clock. They don't have to be scoring, 30 plus, 25 plus. They can score, to the low 20s to, they're with their defense able to hold teams to under 20. That is able to help them get more wins. And so in my personal opinion, I feel like you should just stick with a hot hand. Stick with Rush, even against the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe if you have an easier, maybe a slate of 2-3 opponents that are a little bit easier to play, maybe you bring Prescott in. But I feel like that scheme that you have set in place for Rush, maybe expand it a little bit more for Prescott, but to kind of ease him in. And so keep the scheme that you have in place for Rush and apply that to Prescott as well. Once you have like a easier schedule in place, but really to have Rush and that defense will you guys to wins, and I feel like that's a great decision to make, especially now where that division is really tough now with the Eagles being undefeated. They're 4-1. The Giants are also 4-1. So it's going to be a very tight division race. So now that we're done talking about the NFL, we're going to be talking about my standing predictions for the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. And this is going to be really hard to predict them now before. Obviously, I mean, we've seen preseason games, but to really see them in action throughout the rest of the season, it's a full 82-game season. Who knows what will happen? Injuries will happen. I mean, the Portland Trailblazers, I don't think anyone saw them trading CJ McCollum, then Dame getting injured, and then them getting a lottery pick. It was just, it's the point I'm trying to make is just like it's hard for people to be completely accurate in their predictions, but I feel like it's going to be a fun activity for us to do, and we can see at the end of the season how accurate or terrible these predictions were ahead of the season. Now, before we start, I'm not trying to bash any team. Hopefully, I can keep this as unbiased as possible. But before any further ado, let's go and start with the Eastern Conference, which in my opinion, I think is the hardest one to predict on how well they'll do throughout the season. But let's get to it. So let's start at the very bottom. I feel like with the talks of trades that are coming up, I feel as if the Indiana Pacers, will be at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And that's hard for me to say because I love Tyrese Halliburton. I feel like he's a great player. You have like Bennett Mathurin, who you guys just drafted. He looks pretty good in preseason. But outside of those two, and I guess Chris Duarte as well, although he's a little older, you guys don't really have a ton of guys, young guys that you can really, I guess, look forward to as like superstar level guys. I'm not saying Bennett Mathurin, obviously we haven't even seen a full NBA game from him, but like you don't, it's hard. Like you guys don't have that guy, that dude that you can really just point to, be like, this guy can will us to wins throughout the season. And I do feel like they will, or a trade will happen with Miles Turner going somewhere and potentially Buddy Hield as well. So I feel like this team is looking just for draft picks and to rebuild through the draft. The second team I have at number 14 is the Washington Wizards. And I know Bradley Beal is there, and he's signed for, I believe, 5 more years. And, he's a phenomenal player. But I feel as if they start losing games early on, that Bradley Beal will ask for a trade, and he has a no trade clause, so he can choose which team he wants to go to. But I feel as if that is in the back of his mind, and if they start losing early on ahead of the trade deadline, he'll ask for a trade, request a trade, and then get shipped off to a team. And then I feel like the Washington Wizards will most likely ask for probably a younger player that they're interested in, and then some draft capital as well. So I feel like the Washington Wizards are going to be lower on the standings than I would initially, I guess, place them on. The next team at 13, I feel like this team and the next team, I feel like you can interchange, and both of these teams, in fact, can jump up even to like 8, 9. That is the Detroit Pistons at 13 and the Orlando Magic at 12. Now, the reason why I say these guys are interchangeable, but both of them can jump up to 8 or 9, is they're both really young teams, and they have rookies that they just drafted pretty high in the draft that have looked pretty good throughout preseason or the summer, and they have young guys on that team already that have had a couple seasons and could potentially make a jump in this upcoming season. So I'm really, although I can project and make bold predictions and hot takes on, this team will be the seventh or the eighth or ninth seed, I feel like this is kind of where they'll be in this general 10 to 13 range for both these teams. And, you have Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey on the Pistons, and then Paul Bancaro, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr. on the Magic. And you guys just have a core of young dudes that I guess are trying to find their way as winners in this league who haven't really had that taste of it at the NBA level. So I'm really, really looking forward to the season for these two teams, these young two teams. I feel like they're both going to be really, really fun to watch. But I have them slated here at 12 and 13. At 11, we have the New York Knicks. And the reason why I have them so low is they missed out on Donovan Mitchell in that trade. And although they are going to be looking for another superstar, I feel like this season isn't going to be where they're going to be making a huge, amazing splash to put them up into like the top six contention. I can see them going maybe as high as 7, but beyond that, I don't think I can see them going any higher than that. I mean, you have a young player in RJ Barrett. Julius Randle is, I guess, taking a step back from what we've seen when he was an All NBA player. And so it's like you have guys, but it's not like you are in that upper echelon of a playoff team, but you're not like down here and being a lottery team. You're kind of in like a mediocre kind of space. And so that is why I have them sitting at 11. At number 10, I have the Toronto Raptors. And they're kind of in the same boat as New York in the sense that they have a good roster build. You have, Fred VanVleet, you have Gary Trent Jr., Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. You have, good players on a good team. Defensively, you guys aren't going to have any problems, but you don't really have that dude that can create for himself, create for others at a, superstar level that will really push you guys into that playoff kind of contention that, I'm sorry for that motorcycle. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but in that kind of top 6, top playoff contending area. And so, although it does hurt me to put them this low, I do have them sitting at 10 in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to wait for that motorcycle to pass. And so at number 9, I have the Charlotte Hornets. And this feels kind of low for me as well. But a lot of these teams, I feel like, can go higher. But it's just the Eastern Conference is just super, super tight. Like, it's not like separated with, these top teams and these lower teams, although they are. But in the middle, it's very, very hard, I feel like, to really flesh out. I feel like Charlotte, they can go as high as maybe 7, 8, but then they can go as low as 11, 12, depending on how, I guess, how much of a step the other guys around LaMelo Ball make. Because it's like outside of LaMelo, you don't really have another dude like at an all-star level, although Terry Rozier can, to create for themselves if LaMelo is having an off night. But I definitely think that that LaMelo will have uh, an amazing season next year. But the biggest concern I have is their center position, their center rotation. They have a lot of young guys that are going to be stepping into that role now. And so we'll see the chemistry that they'll have with Ball. More importantly, how they'll be able to make a defensive impact on that team, who have really longed for a center to kind of be established in a role for a long period of time on that team. So although I have them at 9, I can see them going up higher to 7, and once again as low as maybe 11, 12. Now, moving on to our top 8 teams. This team I have pretty low, and it's mostly because just I'm kind of low on this team, and it's the Chicago Bulls. And the reason why I have them this low, although I can see them going up as high as maybe 4, is I don't think that DeMar DeRozan will have the same kind of season that he had last year. I feel like Vucevic has just been taking progressive steps back from his All-Star seasons in Orlando, and with the injury announcement from Ball, I feel like defensively they will have struggles without having him on the court, and we really saw how the team struggled without having Ball and Caruso on the court to have them move around and get turnovers, get steals, and just make huge defensive impacts. And so I feel like it's going to be hard for me to see them really getting up into that top 5 seed area, but it's just hard for me to just throw them out of playoff contention as well, just because of the talent that we have or they have on that team. So that's why I have them kind of or right in the middle at 8. Now, before we get to the top 6, we have at number 7 the Atlanta Hawks. And they just made a huge trade and picked up DeJounte Murray. And I feel like he is just a maybe not a perfect fit, but a pretty good fit alongside Trae Young. And the fact that what Trae Young has needed is a defender and a secondary playmaker, which is exactly what DeJounte Murray is. Now, the problem that I have is DeJounte Murray is not a spacer. He's not a floor spacer. And if you have Clint Capella, if you have John Collins, who, although he can shoot the 3, is not an elite shooter at that position, it's going to be a little tighter, a little bit more congested in that paint area, which is going to be harder for your rim runners, your floaters, your layups to be able to finish inside. Is basically what I'm saying. If you have guys who can't shoot the ball at an elite or at least league average clip. And so, although I do see the Atlanta Hawks being, competitive in games and, getting wins, I don't see them being better than the 6 teams above them in the postseason. And although regular season, standings aren't a direct translation to postseason success, I just want to kind of just put the Atlanta Hawks in this area where, although they're at 7, I can see them, going up to 4, and then potentially maybe at the lowest go to 9, depending on the chemistry and how well Murray and Young play together. Moving into the top 6, I have the Brooklyn Nets, and obviously we have KD, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons on that team. But outside of those 3 guys, you really don't have anyone else. Now, although, Ben Simmons is going to make a huge impact on this team defensively for sure, offensively is where we're going to see how he fits alongside KD, Kyrie, and then another center potentially as well. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see what kind of role will Simmons be placed in. Will he be a primary playmaker like he was in Philadelphia, or will he be played in a more reduced role like let's say like a Draymond Green would, where defensively he's the defensive anchor, the leader, but then offensively he's like running the break, dribble handoffs, pick and rolls, and then dumping off or lobs for dunks inside. It's going to be really, really interesting to see. But I feel like early on they're going to have some chemistry issues, and they're going to be kind of tweaking the team and the rotations and how the offense is going to be running. Because obviously KD and Kyrie have played together, but Ben Simmons is a different player that either of them have really played alongside with. And so I feel like early on it's going to be a lot of adjustments, and so that's why I have them kind of lower than I kind of see them being. But if we see all of them being or playing at their best, I could see them going all the way up to number one. I would not be surprised at all. But I don't think that they'll be any lower than maybe 8. Uh, but that's why I just have them kind of sitting on the lower end just because of the concerns that I have chemistry wise. But I can definitely see them going up all the way to 1. At number 5, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I have them at 5, and it's kind of tough for me to say that, it's we have James Harden coming back for another season. Tyrese Maxey, I feel like, will make another step up. Joel Embiid is just coming off of an MVP-like season. You just picked up a guy in PJ Tucker who will help you guys defensively. He was a great 3-and-D player. James Harden has already played with Tucker, so he'll have some chemistry already there. But I just feel as if the teams above them are either just better all around, or I don't have injury concerns with them. Now, although we did see Embiid be relatively healthy this season, I just have concerns with Harden. Now, I don't think he's done, he's over with, he's washed, but I do have concerns with him being a all-star caliber player like we saw in Houston, where he's able to run an offense. And like, let's say if Joel Embiid is having an off night, then James Harden is able to come in and really just step up and be that number one dude. Now, I'm not asking him to do that every single game, but that he will have the capability to do that when he's asked of it or when he's required to do so. And that confidence there is just kind of in the middle. I'm just like, although I'm not, set on saying that Harden is done, I'm not set on saying that he's going to bounce back either. And so, because of those concerns, it's hard for me to say that they are going to be in that top 4 category, but I do have them sitting here at 5, but I don't see them falling anywhere lower than 6 at all. If they did make a run and they got the number 1 seed, that, to be completely honest, that I would be surprised by that. But being realistic, I probably have them in like the 3 to 6 range, but I have them sitting here at number 5. At number 4, I have the Miami Heat, and the reason why I have them, I guess you could say, relatively high is knowing the Miami culture. And Jimmy Butler had a bunch of injuries, Bam Adebayo had a bunch of injuries, and they were still able to get the number 1 seed. I feel like that they're still going to be gunning for that number 1 seed position, and then they won't take any days off at all unless required to. But I just feel as if the teams above them are just better, and they just have made more, I guess, jumps in what they have acquired this offseason. Miami really hasn't done that, and the only way that I can see them really making another run as a number 1 seed, which I don't think that they need to be doing, they should really be focusing on finishing in the postseason, having everyone healthy, is Kyle Lowry for them. I feel like Kyle Lowry really needs to be able to, he doesn't need to play at an all-star level, but he needs to be playing at an impactful level where he's able to make plays on the defensive end, with taking charges, getting timely steals, but then being kind of a game manager, a true point guard kind of on the offensive end, where he's able to get players involved, whether it's Jimmy Butler and having him getting easier buckets, doing dump offs or pick and rolls and lobs to Bam Adebayo, or getting shooters open off of pin downs and out of horn sets and stuff like that. But I do feel as if Miami can jump up to number 1, but I don't see them any lower than 6 as well. Coming into the top 3 now, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is still there. Middleton is coming off an injury, but he is obviously going to be coming in as the number 2 option Drew Holiday is still there. You have a lot of your pieces that are from that championship team that are still in place, and they are no way out of contention to make another run. I feel like if Chris Middleton was healthy, they could have made another run to the NBA Finals last year. And I feel like a lot of people reciprocate that feeling and that opinion as well. And so the reason why I have them, I'm sorry about that, have the Milwaukee Bucks this high at number 3 is just Giannis. Giannis is just a beast. I have him as the best player in the NBA. Just defensively, offensively, he just is an impactful player on both ends. You can't. There isn't really anyone that can just outright stop him. And if you do, it's going to be, it's going to allow him to play make and get other players open, whether it's passing or fading away. Now that we've seen him in the Eurobasket being more comfortable shooting the ball. So I feel as if during the regular season, Giannis is going to be he's going to have another beast of a season. Middleton is going to be, although he's coming off an injury, I feel like he's going to be a little bit more healthy, obviously, but have Giannis really push this team into a higher seed. But I don't see them making the top seed. This is kind of the ceiling where I have them, but depending on how impactful that injury on Middleton is and how consistent the rest of the roster is outside of Giannis, I can see them falling down as low as 7-6. So this is kind of where I have them at their very best at number 3. But obviously I can see them most likely being in that lower 4-6 range. Number 2 is kind of my biggest hot take, and that is Cleveland. Now, the reason why I have them so high is obviously they just picked up Donovan Mitchell in a trade, and I feel like he's going to be not a perfect fit alongside, Darius Garland in that backcourt, but I feel like he's going to be an impactful addition for that team. And the reason why I love this signing for the Cavaliers is the biggest concern, I guess, that one would have for Donovan Mitchell is his perimeter defense. He could not stop anyone while he was at Utah, and Rudy Gobert kind of got a big, chunk of the blame defensively because he was obviously people thought that he was the reason why they were having defensive struggles in the postseason. While in fact, mostly it was the guys on the perimeter who couldn't really stop anyone from just blowing by, getting to the rim, or playing off a mid-range or making a shot on the outside. Now, on this team, you have Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen on the inside that can really, really, I guess, make up for the defensive lacks that not only Mitchell has, but Garland has as well. And I feel like this young team is going to be gunning for a higher seed in, throughout the regular season. And so that's why I have them slated here at number 2. I can see them going all the way up to number 1, but I can also see them going as low as 6. But I definitely see them making the playoffs. I feel like that's with the addition that they made with Donovan Mitchell. I feel like they're guaranteed to have a playoff spot, barring any injury that happens, any major injuries that happen throughout the season. And at number 1 is going to be, although I haven't made my takes, I feel like as if this team is going to be most likely the team that is going to make a championship run, and that is the Boston Celtics. And I have them this high just because I feel like they have this mentality to make the playoffs and then to make a championship run. And the best way to do that is to have the most easiest path, and that is as the number 1 seed. And so, although they will have a new head coach, they have established a culture, a defensive scheme that has been in place, and that's the reason why I have them here at number 1. Now, obviously, they have a new head coach, and so I can see them falling as low as number 6. And so it's just hard to say exactly where they're going to be. If Ime Udoka was still on this team, I would have no worry to have them fall outside of the top 4. But, without Ime Udoka as their head coach, with a new head coach coming in, um, I feel like it's going to be hard, but they do have a ton of talent. Obviously, Jason Tatum is still there. Jaylen Brown, the last season's defensive player of the year, and Marcus Smart is still there. You just picked up a guy in Malcolm Brogdon who will help facilitate, and then you have pieces off that bench that will help you as well. Whether that's Al Horford or Robert Williams. Hopefully, he gets healthier. Grant Williams it looks like he will be coming off the bench as well. But I feel like this team is going to be set to make a huge run throughout the regular season. So to summarize, I have Boston at 1, Cleveland at 2, Milwaukee Bucks at 3, Miami Heat at 4, Philadelphia at 5, Brooklyn at 6, Atlanta at 7, Chicago Bulls at 8, the Charlotte Hornets at 9, the Toronto Raptors at 10, the New York Knicks at 11, the Orlando Magic at 12, the Detroit Pistons at 13, the Washington Wizards at 14, and the Indiana Pacers at 15. Okay, now for our final topic of this episode, we will be talking about my picks for the Western Conference, and I feel as if this is a little easier. Just like we did with the East, we'll be starting at the bottom, and I feel like the bottom 4 teams are kind of already set. That is the Houston Rockets, Oklahoma City Thunder, the Utah Jazz, and the San Antonio Spurs. Now, I'll kind of discuss these 4 teams in 2 different groups. The Utah Jazz and the San Antonio Spurs I have at 14 and 15. And the reason why I have them at the very bottom is obviously Utah just traded Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. And outside of those guys, you don't really have, the kind of guys that can really will you guys to wins, at least at this stage in their career. And San Antonio is kind of in that same kind of space, in the fact that you guys just traded DeJounte Murray, who was your best player, who was playing amazing defense, and scoring at an elite level. So now that you've lost those guys, I feel like there's just no, I guess, logical reason to push you guys any higher than like 14 or 15, at least in this stage in predictions. Then we have the Houston Rockets at 12. That is where I have them. And then the Oklahoma City at 13. Now, I can see the Oklahoma City Thunder falling all the way to like 14 and 15. And the reason I say that is, although they drafted Chet Holmgren, who obviously after his injury we now know is going to be out for the entire season, I feel like they could potentially try to tank for Wembanyama potentially. And so, although I have them at 13, I can definitely see them falling all the way to 15. But, I don't know, the situation of how long Shea will want to stay or deal with all the losing. And then that potential trade coming up for more draft picks. And then, obviously, them potentially tanking for Wembanyama. I have them this low. And then the Houston Rockets are still just a young team. They're kind of in the same boat as the Magic and the Detroit Pistons. And I could obviously see them jumping up higher up. But it's just the Western Conference is a tough conference to really make a huge jump in. And they're still a young team. So I just have them here at 12. Above them, I have the Sacramento Kings at 11. And I love Keegan Murray. I love what he looked like during Summer League. But it's just, this team really just doesn't have the firepower to really compete with the teams above them, in my personal opinion. And it's just, you have De'Aaron Fox, and then I guess you could say Domantas Sabonis, and then Keegan Murray. But outside of that, you guys really don't have anyone else. And so I have the Sacramento Kings, unfortunately, here at number 11. Now, I don't know if it's a hot take at this point, but I have the Los Angeles Lakers here at 10. I know Anthony Davis is coming back. LeBron James is coming back for his 20th season, and Russell Westbrook is still there. You guys made a move to get Patrick Beverley, who I think is a great addition for this team. But it's just outside of Anthony Davis, LeBron James, guys don't really have anyone else. And although LeBron is still there, I think this team goes as AD goes. If AD is healthy, they could jump up all the way to like 5-6. But if AD is injured and can't play another, maybe like 60 games, you guys are going to be here at number 10. And so, yes, LeBron will still be there, but LeBron is not in that stage of his career where he can carry, a bad team to like the 4 seed, the 3 seed. Uh, he's just too old at this point. He's year 20 now, and so I feel like a big story for the Lakers will be, um, unfortunately, not a championship run, but rather LeBron James winning the scoring title. And so that will be obviously amazing to watch, to witness history. But unfortunately, I feel like AD is going to get injured again. I'm not, you know, wanting that to happen, but seeing AD's injury history, I feel like he'll be missing at least some games throughout this season, which is the reason why I have them sitting here at 10. Coming in at number 9, I have the Portland Trailblazers. And obviously, we have Damian Lillard, who's coming back healthy. And they just made a move to get Jeremy Grant. But uh, outside of Dame, you guys really don't have anyone. And that's kind of a running theme for a lot of these teams on the lower end. Is you guys have a guy, but outside of him, you don't really have a lot of help. Now, Damian Lillard is an amazing player. He can will any team to to at least a win, but he definitely needs a lot of help. And uh there could be a potential for him to be moved, whether it's him requesting a trade or the team deciding that they want to start fresh and start a rebuild. But because of the iffiness that will have, and that question is in the air. I have them here in the middle at number 9, but depending on the moves that they make, maybe they trade for another star, or Damian Lillard gets traded and they trade other dudes. I feel like the Portland Trailblazers could jump up to 6, but they could also drop down to like 12, 13. Now, the biggest question mark for me personally was where to put the New Orleans Pelicans, but I have them here at 8. And the reason why it was just so hard for me to decide where to put them was because Zion Williamson, who looks healthy, he looks motivated, he looks ready to play, he's going to be coming back, but it's him. How much of an impact can he make on the team in the win-loss column? Obviously, CJ McCollum is there. Brandon Ingram had an amazing season. This team was just a very gritty, kind of feisty team that was like, we're not going away. We're going to be in every single game. And they made the playoffs because of it. I feel like Willie Green is an amazing coach. You guys have young guys like, Jose Alvarado. I'm blanking on their defender, number 5, their small forward defender. I forget his name. Please comment what his name is. I'm blanking on his name. Hopefully you guys know who I'm talking about. But Herb Jones, that's his name. Herb Jones. Herb Jones, the young defender on that team. I feel like they're going to make a huge step up this season. And obviously with Zion Williamson coming back, they'll make a huge step as well. So, but I have them kind of projected on the lower end in my standings predictions, at least this time around. So I have them at 8, but I can see them going up as high as 4, but then potentially as low as this 8 to 10 range as well. Another team that I had big questions on was the Minnesota Timberwolves, and their roster is kind of set to make a really big splash in the regular season because with 2 huge, I guess you could say centers, but they'll most likely be playing at the 4 and 5 with Towns and Gobert. I feel like they're just a huge mismatch for any team. With Anthony Edwards, who I see as making a huge step up, and then D'Lo, who is a serviceable point guard, and then Jaden McDaniels, who's an amazing defender, underrated defender. I feel like this team could make a huge run, potentially getting into that top four in the regular season standings. But I have them here projected on the lower end just because of the concerns that I have, chemistry wise, just early on. How will Towns be playing at that four position? Just how will he play offensively, defensively alongside Gobert? How will that fit? And all that just jazz chemistry wise. But I feel like on paper, you could project them as high as 2, even potentially 1. But I don't think they're going to be any lower than 8. I feel like definitely they're going to be in a play-in spot for sure. Now, this was tough for me. I feel like this 4 to 6 range is just tough. Even 3 to 6 actually. But in order, I have the Golden State Warriors at 3, the Phoenix Suns at 4, Dallas Mavericks at 5, and then the Memphis Grizzlies at 6. I feel like these 4 teams are completely interchangeable. And the reason why I have them in that specific order is, well, the Golden State Warriors are just coming off a championship. Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole are going to be playing for contracts. And although Draymond Green had that incident with Jordan Poole, which we will be talking about a little bit more after this, is just that I feel like they're just going to be gunning for another great season. And so that's why I have them that high, but I can obviously, like I said, see them lower on that spectrum as well. Now, the Phoenix Suns is a concern that I have, and just they have signed. Obviously, they signed DeAndre Ayton, so they're kind of stuck with the guys that they have now, and so I have them here sitting at 4 just because we've seen them execute during the regular season. Obviously, they were the number 1 seed last year, but I feel as if that it's going to be a little bit tougher for them this season just because of all the upgrades that the rest of the league has made, and just the step ups that teams have obviously made throughout throughout the off season. And so I have them at 4, but can see them jump up to that 1-2 range, but also drop down to the 7-8 range as well. And the Mavericks and the Memphis Grizzlies, I kind of have them in the same boat in the sense that Luka and Ja will these teams to wins for sure. And the Memphis Grizzlies were a surprise team last year in the fact that they went all the way to the number 2 seed. But I feel like people will be a little bit more aware of this team and know that they're the real deal. I'm not saying that they were like slacking last season when they were playing them, but instead of being the hunted or the hunters, sorry, they're now being the hunted. So that's a completely different kind of role. Obviously, the Warriors can attest to that as well. And so I definitely see both these teams doing really well, but with injury concerns with, Jaren Jackson Jr., and then we saw with Morant throughout last season as well. I can see them obviously jumping up to that number 1-2 seed, but also I have them kind of projected on the lower end, at least on this one, even the same with the Mavericks, where I can see them going up to the 1-2 seed, but have them on the lower end here, at least on my standings predictions. And at number 2, I have the Denver Nuggets. And the reason why I have them this high is Jokic is coming off an MVP season where he kind of carried this team without Michael Porter Jr., without Jamal Murray, and now with both of those guys coming back, I feel like this team, especially those 2 guys, will be motivated to really push this team into championship contention. I feel like in doing so, they'll bring themselves to a high seed and really, really, really aim for that number 1, 2 seed, which I think they're completely capable of doing. I love Jokic, and obviously him coming off of back-to-back MVP seasons. I feel like he'll make another a great season. And then, although I do have my concerns with Michael Porter Jr. and how he'll perform, obviously we haven't really seen a ton from him. But I feel like him and then Jamal Murray will have a little bit of struggles early on. Obviously, he's just adjusting to the speed of the game and coming off injuries. But I feel like once they get into their groove, into their set, mode, that they'll be able to push for that 1 to 2 seed. And this may be my hottest take yet, and that is the LA Clippers at number 1. Now, this is a really, 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 really bold take. And the reason why I say that is, on paper, they're a really, really, really good team, and a lot of people are picking them to be the winners for the chip this upcoming season. With Paul George, with Kawhi Leonard, and obviously now you bring in John Wall, who is like a tertiary playmaker that you guys have. It's just that the biggest concern for this team out of anything is, can they still stay healthy? That is the biggest concern for this team. And in my opinion, like AD, I don't think that is going to be that's going to happen. Whether it's a serious injury or load managing or minor injuries, whatever the case may be, it's going to be hard for me to say with confidence that they're going to be healthy. But I feel as if this team kind of has to go all in and really, really aim for a championship this season. Who knows how healthy Kawhi will be. Paul George is playing really, really well, but he's, if he's not already in his 30s, he's going to be close to his 30s. And so this team is on a timer. And so I feel as if this season is kind of that season where they'll be gunning for that championship chip. But the concern that I obviously mentioned with the injuries is why I can see them dropping all the way down to like that 8 to 10 range. And that's a huge disparity on, barring on injury. But I feel like if healthy, they can definitely make a run to be that number 1 seed. And so that's why I have them all the way at number 1. So to summarize, I have the Clippers at number 1, Denver Nuggets at 2, the Golden State Warriors at 3, the Phoenix Suns at 4, the Dallas Mavericks at 5, the Memphis Grizzlies at 6, Minnesota Timberwolves at 7, the New Orleans Pelicans at 8, the Portland Trailblazers at 9, the Los Angeles Lakers at 10, the Sacramento Kings at 11, the Houston Rockets at 12, the Oklahoma City Thunder at 13, the Utah Jazz at 14, and the San Antonio Spurs at 15. Finally, for our last topic of the episode, and that is going to be the Draymond Green Jordan Poole fiasco, I guess you could say, where, for those who aren't aware, there was an incident during practice where Draymond Green threw a punch and had a physical altercation with his teammate Jordan Poole. Now, there have been a lot of statements that have been made, but one that was made with Steve Kerr was this. He said that this is the biggest crisis that we've had since I've been the coach here. It's really serious stuff. We're not perfect, but we're going to lean on the experience that we've had together and trust that this is the best decision for our team. We have a lot of work to do, all of us. So the reason why he's saying this is Green has received an undisclosed fine from the organization, but he won't be suspended ahead of the Dubs' regular season opener against the Los Angeles Lakers on a Tuesday. However, Draymond Green has come out with a statement saying that he is going to be taking a break just to reflect and meditate on his actions, and he has come out with an apology as well. Now, it has come out that Poole has not, physically is not injured, where he has to miss any games. But this is a huge blow to just the Warriors as a whole. Now, it obviously does beg the question on whether Draymond Green will be traded or not, but that's a discussion for another day. The reason why I want to bring this up is I just wanted to share my opinion. And a lot of people in media and whether it's on national television or whatever the case may be, um, is saying that this happens in locker rooms all the time, and that this is just kind of the first, maybe not the first time, but a time where it is being televised, in the sense that we have seen actual footage and it's been actively reported uh, through the media, and it's not really being, or it's not like kept under wraps and within the organization. And the reason why people are saying that, I quote unquote, that it's okay, not in the sense that punching people and having physical altercations is okay, but that when you're in this competitive kind of setting, that you're competitive as a athlete. You butt heads, you trash talk, you sometimes get into physical altercations. However, in my personal opinion, this cannot be this kind of uh I guess idea that being in this kind of competitiveness is okay. Yes, I do believe that when you're competitive, when you're passionate for the sport that you play, things like this can happen. However, I feel as if where it comes to a point where you have a physical altercation with your teammate, I feel like that's where we have to cross the line, not only as fans, but as organizations and as teams. Now, the reason why I feel like this is so important to talk about is that this is the athletes. These are athletes' jobs to play the sport that they are asked to play each and every single day, whether that's in practice, whether that's in a game, whether that's in OTAs, whether that's in, the gym, whether that's on the court, whatever the court case may be, that is their job. That's how they provide for their family. That's how they earn money. And in the same sense, we as, the general population have our own jobs as well, whether that's, you know, part time, full time, intern, on YouTube in a physical place, whatever the case may be, we all have jobs as well. Now, if one of us went to our own jobs, and because we were passionate for our job, we decided to come to a physical altercation with another coworker, there is no company, no situation where anyone would find that okay. Now, obviously, these kind of things are not, a one-to-one comparison. We can't say just because it doesn't happen in the work field, this can't happen in sports as well. It's a completely different situation, but I think that uh, uh, some ideas are transferable, and I think that this is one of them. Obviously, we have to take things from a case-to-case basis, especially when it's different, from the work field to the sports world. But I do think that if you are teammates and you're working together to come to a common goal of winning, these kind of things are things that have to go punished, whether it's from the team, whether it's from the league, or from other players. In fact, someone has to speak out, someone has to step up and say that, yes, being competitive is important. You can trash talk, you can, butt heads, you can argue and say that this is what we should do. This is what we should do. That's not good. This is good. Whatever the case may be. But being a fan of this game and a fan of the players that are in this league, Luckily, Jordan Poole was not majorly injured, through this. But let's say he was. He loses out on a chance to play for his contract. Then he loses money. And he can't, maybe he loses out on an all-star appearance, or the team doesn't get another chance to make the postseason or another, deep playoff run because of something like this. We're extremely lucky that, huge repercussions were not caused from this kind of altercation, which is why I think instead of waiting for those kind of things to happen and then decide to change it, I feel like it is better to be more cautious and then dialing that back to a point where we are able to say that everyone can be not only competitive but still be in a safe environment as well. And I don't think that Draymond Green had any ill intent when it came to this kind of, competitive spirit, but I definitely think that it is something to watch out for, not only for players, but for fans, leagues, and organizations as well. This brings us to the conclusion of this episode. I hope you have enjoyed. If you've watched this far into the video or the podcast, if you're listening on Google Podcasts or whatever the case may be. But I just want to thank you, appreciate you. If you guys are watching on YouTube, please click a like and subscribe, comment, share it. I want to grow this channel to the point where I can do this completely full time and just talk about sports on a daily basis. So if you guys can subscribe, watch it, share it, like the video, comment, that I would greatly appreciate that. But I hope you guys have a great day. Stay positive, stay motivated. Peace out.